It's just after we're recording, and we'll call the meeting to order. It's 7:33. First of all, I'd like to know if anybody who read the meetings had minutes, had any comments on the minutes, which we sent out with the email. If there are no corrections or comments on the minutes, I move that we accept them.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. Minutes are good to go. So do we have anyone from RPD? I don't see anyone on my screen that I recognize from RPD.
I think
So
I think he's there. Is that you, Officer Tagorda? You're on mute.
Okay, there you are. You in your car?
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Full game.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure it was you because I have old vision.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we'll go ahead with the police report from Officer Tagorda, fresh from his car.
And again, I apologize. I'm at my son's baseball game, so I had to break away.
Oh,
All right. Well, we'll keep it brief for you then.
No, anyway, good evening. We'll start with the stats. I'm pleased to report that there's been a reduction in the number of cases in the past 30 days as compared to the previous 30. So it's 28 cases for the past 30 days as compared to 30 from the previous month. I must say that I'm looking at the numbers and they've gone down drastically, I would say, as compared to the last previous months. Anyway, top calls for service or most incident reports is stolen vehicles, which was only 4 for the Point Richmond area, which is pretty darn good. The next in line would be this grand theft, and there's 3 calls in the past 30 days for grand theft, and I'm sure Lisa's going to ask me this question eventually, so we'll just get it out of the way. 3 West Richmond had assault with deadly weapons. So
brandishing.
So there was only two calls regarding assaults with deadly weapons and 2 domestic violence incidences for the month of or the last 30 days, should I say. So that's pretty good, I'd say. I mean, nothing in the double digits. So yeah, those are the top calls in the Point Richmond area. So Lisa, I know it's been bugging you, so if you want to go ahead and ask me the question.
I'm just curious if the brandishing was that related to a DV or was that just some random individual?
I think it was just a brandishing. It was, anytime something comes out, it's usually just a brandishing. Other than the 3 West Richmond that occurred a couple weeks ago, where someone was shot. So supposedly got shot. So I mean, it's still under investigation, but we did recover a firearm, and somebody was arrested. So yeah.
Okay. And I just have one other question that I know I asked Lieutenant Decius, and he was gonna look into it if he had time. With all the calls that continually happen at 900 West Cutting, is the majority of those related to the Sure Stay itself, or are they just
all of it?
Random calls in the area and they're not related to people at the Sure Stay?
It's all related to Sure Stay, most of it. I would say 95% of the calls that come out of Sure Stay or the 900 block of West Cutting is from the hotel. And usually they're calling because patrons don't want to leave, or they're refusing to leave, or somebody with mental health issues is causing a ruckus, so then they call us. But it's nothing serious that is really coming out of their Sure Stay other than just like disturbance calls or somebody who's not willing to leave.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, you had a question?
Yes. The shooting, was that over by the Mechanics Bank, or was that in front of the Todd
West Richmond.
Motel?
The Todd Motel or Hotel, however you want to refer to it.
Peter, the suspect did flee towards the Mechanic Bank now. So that was probably the same incident that was on social media.
And was
Yeah,
that?
Correct, Officer DeGorda?
we chased the guy and caught him. Yeah, we caught him that day.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that was it.
And James?
Is the county, are they issuing motel vouchers for that sure stay?
I believe so, yes. There's a couple hotels within the city that have, I would say, contracts or whatnot. But a lot of them do go there, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, a follow-through question, which was implied, is are the folks being placed by the county, do they appear to be part of the problem?
I would say it's a combination of things, but I would say most of it is yes. People that get placed there are not that. I would say a lot of them. Yeah, let's just say yeah. I don't want to put them in a category, but yes, a lot of the problems that Sure State are having are from the people that are being placed there. Yes.
We we have history there where many of the people, particularly during the pandemic, maybe a mother and a child, and everybody's looking good, but what we are concerned about is drug dealing, and if we're bringing criminals, if criminals are being placed without vetting, that's something we need to address with Michelle, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works because there's regulations about.
I don't think she has a lot of control over that because a lot of that does come from the county. I mean, yeah, stuff of that is core, but also when people are leaving the detention facilities, I mean, they give them a voucher, put them on a bus, and that's where they go.
Right. We've had probably almost doubling of our under the freeway crowd, as you're aware. We've had this conversation. So we're seeing the same downtown in the Triangle, particularly under the freeway. We're seeing the same influx that we did when the Woods encampment was closed, with residents reporting the bus doors will open and a person with no means, sometimes even with no shoes, gets off. So we know those people are not finding their way here on their own. Somebody's
Of course.
putting them on the bus and saying, get off at the last stop if they're from Oakland, or get off the first stop over the bridge if they're coming from Marin. Lisa and I did a lot on this during the Woods encampment when things started getting hairy. Yeah, Lisa? Yes, Lisa?
I don't know if you can answer this question, but well, there's two questions. Are they short-term, like one night stay vouchers, or are they long-term vouchers? And then the follow-on question is, I will bring this up with Supervisor Joya because this was very contentious last time during COVID, and they placed 6 people there that were not allowed to be there because of the proximity to the school and the park. So I don't know how RPD is following up on this. I know the onerous is on the individual to check in with RPD if they're on the list for Megan's law and Jessica's law. So that fell through the cracks horribly before, and I'm gonna have a serious conversation with Joya if that's happening again.
Well, I know the people that do stay there, it's not just one night. I mean, on rare occasions is it one night, but usually they're there for a few days, if not weeks. And whether or not they're required to check in, I don't know if we're receiving a list. So if they are a sex registrant or whatnot, a lot of them do check in, but I don't know if they're coming from the Sure Stay. They may be coming from other places within the city. So it's really hard to tell. I don't know who keeps track of that as far as who's coming in and who's going where. All I know is that they're required to check in with whatever city they reside at. So if they come into Richmond, they're required to check in. So, but then again, I don't know what's going on over there and how they regulate that.
Is it core?
It's what?
Is it core that's doing it with the county, or is it some of their components?
It's all county based. Core, from what I understand, is just it's just an assistance program. It's not. I don't really think they have anything really to do with the sex registrants or anything like that.
Okay, so, I'll follow up with Supervisor Joya. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Lisa. Loop me in on that because one of the challenges is if somebody is given 5 days to stay in a neighborhood that's remote to them, These are not local people. And then there's no follow-up when their 5 days is over, they're under the freeway.
Yep.
And that's really frightening. The other thing I want to mention, and I can't find the email immediately, those of you who live in the Old Point Richmond area or go through, actually all of Point Richmond, except for where the houseboats are, Peter, is that we were hit with graffiti in the worst way. It seems to be two separate instances. The major tagging that occurred, maybe 20 tags all over the plunge, the elementary school, the hamburger stand, all of that. Those teenagers have been identified, and Michelle and Officer Lieutenant Decius are trying to decide kind of how to handle that, because they can't be positively identified in a lineup. But local residents know whose kids those are. And I think that what the PD wants to do is kind of approach the parents and let them know that their kids are getting into some trouble. Andrew Butt has identified that these are neighborhood kids who he knows because his kids are that age. And so he feels that some of those kids are heading down a bad path. Folks up on Scenic and Terrace recognize those same kids as allegedly selling marijuana from their cars, in addition to just being teenagers and smoking it. But that was thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. Luckily, local neighbor Ed, whose last name I don't know, lives on my block and happens to work for the city. And they started painting over that graffiti pretty quickly. Then there was a second set of incidents on Terrace and Scenic yesterday. And these are kind of out of town ne'er-do-wells who hang out in cars. That's a dangerous corner. An officer to go to, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Lieutenant Decius who emailed me and said they're going to try to tick up patrols on that Scenic Avenue, Terrace, all the way up to Crest, that sort of triangle. This is the graffiti is awful, and they cover it, but of course they can't match the paint colors. So the message is still that we're a place where you can come and do graffiti. So that's an update on the graffiti, which was a pretty buzzy situation. Luckily, we have 5 gallons worth of tunnel paint. The tunnel was trash. But Gary generously lets me keep paint in his shed, so I was able to provide fresh red paint for the tunnel because I had it on hand. The city has 5 gallons as well, but they couldn't find it immediately. So what I'm going to be doing is splitting that into 5 gallons up into smaller cans, and so a few people have those cans, and we can real quick smack that up, because for those of us who worked on the tunnel, it was heartbreaking, to see our freshly painted tunnel trashed like that. And the same, of course, Gary and Maren must feel about the plunge. Anyway, sorry, anyone have any more questions for Sergeant Tagoda so he can go back to his son's ball game? Nope. Keep an eye on that Terrace Scenic area if you would, sir. I would appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem.
And enjoy the game. Thanks for dropping in.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Take care.
Bye.
All righty, so I've got a few things. I'll try to keep it brief because the details that I have for you are way too complicated to talk about in 5 minutes. I did attend the Bay Area Air Quality Board meeting that was forwarded to me by Susan Cotton, who is on the Santa Fe Neighborhood Council, and she's really involved with that. And then also Caesar. And I sat with Caesar, and then afterwards we had a long talk. So Chevron has been fined $20 million. Now this is one specific set of 2 levels of funding that are coming in, and this is certainly just a thumbnail of how this meeting went. But there is $20 million coming down the pike, and that $20 million is to be spent emanating outwards from Chevron, which means Point Richmond, Atchison Village, Santa Fe and Iron Triangle will get the most of that money. And Point Richmond gets the highest concentration. So Caesar Zapata is watching very carefully to make sure that that money actually goes here. It is money that is supposed to mitigate air particulate. So one of the things that, and I spoke a couple times at that meeting, kind of just sharing our concerns, inviting members of the Bay Area air quality to my home to kind of witness some of this greasy grit that we all get on our windowsills in our neighborhood. And also to mention the coal trains, also to mention the other polluters, not just Chevron. But the bottom line is this is for mitigation. So, maintaining existing mature trees came up, and planting additional trees where many have died came up. And then they're going to look at other ways to see if they can decrease the particulate. We talked specifically about trying to use some of that money to get assistance for the area in Old Town around Castro, where David lives, where those residents have idling cars. So maybe an hour or two of cars idling in front of your house with that gridlock. That's come back a little bit. So I was hoping there might even be a solution to use some of that money to get traffic control or signage or some type of more permanent barricade. So I just wanted to let you know that meeting came up for me at the last minute, so I was not really well prepared, but I wanted to make sure that our voice was heard. Then there are many millions coming further down the pike, and that is for the entire Bay Area, including San Francisco. So, we will call on our community to continue to write in to make sure we're getting our share. I do appreciate that air travels, but, to overlook the immediate neighborhoods so that money from Chevron can go to San Francisco is something we don't want to happen. We want to make sure we get our fair share of that mitigation. I also attended a meeting concerning bike lane safety and evacuation routes. That meeting didn't go as well as I had hoped it would from our side. And we'll hear from Richard Diaz a little bit because he's really a part of that conversation. But one of the things I learned in that meeting is the bike lanes can be changed. And I rode with Robert Stevens, whose local company, works for the Marcia Valier, works for Robert Stevens. And we rode, and he saw some of those safety and accessibility concerns that we've been talking about. He feels that some of those changes are easy fixes, and some of them are going to be needed to be looked at a little bit more carefully. The horrifying takeaway for me was that there was zero outreach to the county or to the school district concerning evacuation zones. Or evacuation routes. And part of that problem is that we didn't have somebody like Richard Diaz for years. So there was no one to communicate within the city about what these routes are. And I got an email just this afternoon from Public Works still asking if we even have the evacuation routes and what they are. So that's kind of a cluster mess. So quite conveniently, in a moment, we'll introduce Richard Diaz, our new emergency services manager. Is that the title, Richard? And Richard was generous enough to take a very long drive with me the day before yesterday. And yesterday. It was yesterday. And I showed him a couple things, which he can touch on what his impressions were, not only concerning Cutting Boulevard, but also concerning, just to let Richard know what it looks like up in the hills, what the evacuation routes are from Brickyard Cove, what the challenges are with traffic markings, how dark it is, how hard it is, what happens if it's raining, what happens if the trains come by, and all those issues we talk about every day. So I'm grateful for Richard. I'll introduce you in just a second because I see we have a question from Eric. But I'm really grateful to Richard for kind of getting to know our neighbor neighborhood physically with his eyes, so that it's not just a road map where someone says, oh yeah, you can escape using East Scenic, or oh yeah, just pop on over on Upper Western and you can avoid the fire. So I'm going to move on with the meeting. We will be uh, Caesar's going to arrange that there'll be more bike lane meetings before there's any more bike lane construction. So that's going to be special meetings, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now we're up for, I see, Eric, you have a question?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, camera off this evening. I'm remote on my phone as well. Going back to Chevron and the 20 million, can you talk about timing of when the funding's available, and then what's the mechanism? How does it get dispersed or spent or distributed?
I can't because I'm not Lisa. And so I was more trying to write down what I was saying, what I was going to say, than what I was going to listen to. But the main thing is Caesar is on it for us. And we can get back to that unless Lisa has a little more information. But I think we should move on with this meeting and let me go back to that, because I don't want to, it's pretty complicated.
Sounds
And
good.
it's gonna,
Thanks, Phil.
and we're gonna have to be really sure that the city is on its toes. And that this money doesn't, there was already somebody talking about how we could move it into homeless encampments. So that was happening right there, and it was inevitable, but that's not what that money is for. So let's go ahead with Treasurer's report. Margie, what's going on?
Unmute me, see.
You're on mute.
You
Hello.
muted yourself again. There you go.
Sorry. We have about $22,000 in the bank. We're waiting for some money from Chevron for the spring fling, and we did get approval if we want to use the Arts of Point Richmond's new 501c3, they would pass it for us.
Great, and I'll follow up on Chevron for that. And good news is we do have some commitments for the tunnel mural signage project that we're working on. I know that I'm going to take a big membership, and the Arts of Point Richmond Alpha Humphreys made a generous donation for the Arts of Point Richmond logo to be on that sign. So so far it's polishing up to be a good fundraiser. Eric, what's going on with membership?
We are still at 175 paid active members, same as last month. So that's my update. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll remind those present, and we'll all move in the direction of reminding people that dues come due in May, correct? So it's time to start paying using PayPal or sending checks. On the last page of every newsletter is information on how you can update your membership so that you can vote on important issues. Now I'd like to introduce the new emergency services manager, Richard Diaz. I mentioned he gave me a generous amount of his time. Richard, could you tell us a little bit of a background and introduce yourself and explain to us what your role is in the city?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Philip. Before I continue, I just want to let you guys know that I have kids in the background, so it might conflict with my audio. But good evening. Happy to be here. Richard Diaz, Emergency Services Manager is my title, so that's correct, Philip, with the City of Richmond Fire Department. So a little bit about myself. I came into the city in early December of last year, so I'm a little bit 4.5 months into my role. Prior to this, I was with the City of Santa Fe and also with the County of Sonoma in North Bay. Prior to that, I actually was on the East Coast with the City of Jacksonville in Florida. And prior to that, I was focused on nonprofit and humanitarian work abroad. So several assignments and deployments with UN agencies as a consultant, focused on health response operations. Spring forward, have been focusing on local government preparedness and response, because that is something that I actually have more interest in. in this role, very limited, as you might imagine. It was almost 2 years since this position was last filled. So I am slowly, getting familiarized with Richmond, being supported within, with all limitations by the fire department staff, and also prioritizing on specific things that I realize are critical, and it's possible given our limitations. So one of them is focusing on what is referred to as the external preparedness aspect, so community engagement. For instance, CERT trainings. We actually are halfway through our CERT program for this year, taking place at the fire department's training center. We are looking forward to expanding and bringing back and providing more of community preparedness trainings, such as Listos. You might have heard of that one, and expanding also certain in other languages. So in this case, Spanish. Forgot to mention, I'm also bilingual, speak Spanish. Spanish is my first language. It's trying really just to offer and leverage all those skills and resources to the best of my ability is my goal. The other thing that I have been prioritizing is internal, what I like to call as internal preparedness. So that is city enhancement of skills. By that, I mean revising our plans, updating our plans. We have an emergency operations plan, which is by law a mandate for every jurisdiction at county level, at city level. And also our EOC, which is Emergency Operations Center. So looking at ways down the road to upgrade and just equipped it with capabilities needed should we activate for a major response. So those are the two quick things. Beyond that, of course, if something happens and there's a response and recovery aspect of my role, that is, in essence, the four major components of what emergency management is all about. So again, it's really looking at how to engage a community, make them aware of what they need to do, what they need to know, access to resources. Also the internal preparedness from the city, then the response capabilities. And again, I mentioned it's for now, it's within my limited functions. That's how we're moving forward. And there's a lot that needs to be made, improving our emergency notification systems, for instance, through Nixles or Everbridge, as you might have heard, coordination with the county on a community warning system for immediate actions to take. Obviously, also becoming very familiarized and have developed that close relationship with industry partners. So Chevron, obviously, having a big presence in this jurisdiction. Phillips 66, other players such as Viola, and other pipeline operators, for instance. So it's just, to give you a little bit of what is the overall perspective that I should be aware of and include and keep in mind when it comes to planning and response. Moving a little bit forward here. Sorry, I have my notes here just to help me guide and not take much time and leave it open for any questions. One other way that I've focused, these 4 months is really taking advantage of these spaces. Yesterday was really great. Philip, thank you again. I did enjoy and learn a lot from that ride along in Point Richmond. So I have no problem in really getting down to that level to really understand what are the needs and, again, the things that I need to know and be aware of to bring back into the drawing board and incorporate into our planning process. So understanding the evacuation situation, understanding the hazards. I mean, it is something to really sit down and think collaboratively with you on how to make things, that really work and lean towards a public safety for all. Also, I have here West Conocachos Unified School District is one major thing. I mean, so many schools within Richmond, especially that are within hazardous impact. That also it's one of our priorities to start engaging. So overall, it's quite a bit. And I must say not to compare anything, but just to give you a sense of how emergency management should be tackled. So City of Berkeley, for instance, relatively similar in population size. Well, they have 4 staff within their OES office. Hopefully we'll get to that point as well, because really comes down to focusing on those components that I mentioned. But I'll do my best, and obviously look forward to you working with neighborhood councils, especially. No other jurisdiction that I've worked in has this level of neighborhood specific organized groups. So I do think that this is very advantageous for me. So it's going to be a collaborative effort to really think about and plan things. And evacuation routes was something that Philip mentioned, was brought up in a recent meeting in checking within our city efforts. The general plan, it's a document which is required also by law by the state of California for the county to have one, but also the city to have one. So we have a document called general plan, which is kind of like the roadmap of how we're going to work. That general plan has a specific component called public safety and noise element. And that component of the general plan touches upon evacuation routes. There's a draft being updated at the moment, led by the planning department. I've been brought in to provide some inputs, etc. As it stands now, Cutting Boulevard and Richmond Parkway show as the key evacuation routes, which makes me realize that to really bring it down to the Point Richmond community and deciding what would be the priority evacuation routes, that needs to be developed in coordination with you guys, since you as local residents would know best what would be the best way in and out, and what should be prioritized. So I look forward to developing something that really benefits the community in that regard. And again, evacuation routes is not something that should be complex. It's just simply identifying what are those key streets, what are those key avenues that should be delineated as this is prioritized, this should be a key nerve that should be can't think of the term right now, but it's should be supported. It should be given priority over other things. That is what I wanted to mention in terms of evacuation. And yeah, looking at my notes here, that's pretty much what I can share at this time. I'm happy to take any questions at the moment. My office is in 440 Civic Center Plaza. Again, I am within the fire department in the admin building, and my role is citywide. Happy to be here. So far, enjoying Richmond, understanding the complexity of Richmond, and especially the people.
Thanks, Richard. Edie, I see you have a question.
Hi, I was wondering, are you connecting with the existing CERT groups within the city? And who's doing the training for CERT, the class that you have going now? And how many people are in it that are from Richmond? Or is it also being shared with Berkeley as they used to do?
Hi, Eddie. Yes, through the CAPER group. By the way, Charmaine, I see you here. Charmaine is one of the key CERT volunteers that have been instrumental in supporting the continuity of the CERT trainings. I have been in touch through them, I should say. I have been in touch with other CERT neighborhood groups. My goal is to map out or revive those original CERT groups that at some point in time were created. I think it's beautiful to just see it all on a map, how all that looks, and keep developing those neighborhood CERTs. So the training going on now, I am leading it, and again supported by other CERT volunteers in terms of training. So we're halfway through. It's taking place every Thursday evening. So tomorrow is another module focused on team organization. And yeah, we're looking forward to another successful accomplishment of the CERT training by end of May.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because I'm one of the CERT trainers that was trained by that I went through Train the Trainer in Richmond, and used to up until like 2 years ago was actually doing some of these trainings. And I was thinking, they're doing CERT training? Why has nobody called me? Which is probably because I have not been involved as much with CERT the last couple of years. So yeah, I was curious.
Thank you. I just wrote down your name to never forget it. We need to really piggyback on you guys that have gone, especially through the Trader Trainers, because it is a multiplying effect, especially in Richmond. It's you give the training once, and we really expect that group to expand and to communicate out, and to come back and volunteer, and just help grow that skill set in the community.
Lisa.
Can you help clarify? So are you going to be the point person within fire for emergency response plans when it comes to CEQA and mitigation response plans? Are you that contact person now?
Yes, I am that person. Yeah, it's the Office of Emergency Services Manager. I will, in terms of hazard mitigation, for instance, which is a huge planning effort because it is federally mandated. It also has a funding component. In a few minutes, I'll drop in the chat a link to our website, which will take you to the county website, where you all would be able to take to see the latest draft version of the local hazard mitigation plan. So it's currently being updated. A draft has been released for all jurisdictions participating, including City of Richmond. So we would love for you to take a look, and if possible, provide any comments or feedback, and the link to those two are on the website that I'm going to share.
So what about for existing issues? So I know Philip took you on a tour, so there's like a major issue. And so I've been waiting for over 6 months for the city to get back to me on something that's very serious, that is in violation of CEQA. And fire and RPD are the ones who were to have signed off on it. So that's why I'm asking if I should be forwarding these communications to you to help get an answer.
I wouldn't mind being an entryway, to see if responses could be obtained. It might lie under specific office within the fire department. It could be prevention, for instance. It could be operations. But I have no problem in helping getting that, and doing second consultations just to see where things are.
Okay.
Lisa, is that the tanks?
No, this is
Something else.
So the whole Honda Port of Entry project, which is affectionately auto warehousing and all the cars getting trucked through on the trains, that's called the Honda Port of Entry project. It was approved in 2008. In order for that to get approved, there was an underlying ERP, or emergency response plan. And fire and police have to sign off on that plan annually. And it's not clear that the plan was ever signed off. Ever.
Thanks, Lisa.
So that's what I'm trying to get insight into. And I can forward that to you, Mr. Diaz, and then you can give me a call and we can just walk through it, because that's probably easier over the phone.
Thanks, Lisa.
Right.
The reason I asked about the tanks is because I pointed them out yesterday.
Yeah,
So
we have over
they
four-
were top of mind.
we have
Another
over-
issue. Another issue. Chuck,
Yeah, so I understand that you're the only one in your office, but your office is situated within the fire department. And my question is whether or not you can draw on any of the resources and personnel of the fire department from time to time to kind of get your work done, or are you hanging out there kind of just by yourself? I mean, I could think in CERT training, you might want fire personnel to assist with that and other things where you need to draw on more people or could. So just a question about that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chuck. I 100% rely on my fire department colleagues. They are the ones that, are providing me with intelligence, introducing me to contacts. They know the lay of the land better than I do. And they have been, more operational. They are operational. They are first responders. That's EMS, that's, just the fire suppression aspect of it, but it's just the overall response approach. It's within fire, so I do rely on them, and we'll continue to rely on them. For CERT, yes, we do bring in fire medics and several engine companies to come in and support and provide lectures. Such as the case for there's a medical module in CERT trainings. We brought them in to provide that specific practical expertise and perspective and answer questions that people really want to know. Stop the bleed. How do they do it? And what are the things to avoid? Things that people really are interested in knowing, and just to have that official presence from the guys that really are out there on a daily basis, taking calls and responding.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and drop that website link as I mentioned on the chat, but I'll take any other questions in the meantime.
James has his hand up.
yeah,
This is for
Sorry.
Lisa. This is for Lisa. What's deficient in the Honda Port of Entry project?
There's a few different mitigation measures that have not been properly addressed. They mostly deal with the evacuation routes. So one is the trains, and they're blocking of Cutting, Garrard, and Canal. And they are not allowed to go back and forward, which they do all the time. But the other is there was an approved evacuation or entry route for fire and police off of Cutting. And so I think Mr. Diaz is now aware of the routes if Philip took him on the tour. And if fire can't get through because of trains, they can get on to the freeway, exit at Canal, and come into Point Richmond. They would turn left on Cutting Boulevard, and there's supposed to be a gate with a Knox locks on there. It's never been there. The police actually photographed it for me, and I'm sending you pictures of it where the Knox locks was never installed. The police and fire can't enter it, and police even told me that gate is so fortified that if the fire department, which the fire department will constantly say, we'll just ram anything, we don't care, it would destroy the fire truck. So that's ridiculous, number one, to expect our fire department to just ram gates when it was supposed to be installed. And then the trains are constantly blocking part of that route that they would cut through on Cutting to get to all the tanks if there's a major explosion or something in those tanks. And so that was a protected route as part of the approval through the CEQA process, and it's never been followed.
Okay, when I got trapped by a train on Wharf Street that derailed, the emergency exit is through the BN Automotive Yard, and that's the gate that the gate that drops out to Cutting.
Correct.
They let me sneak out there, but yeah, it's and now with the bike lane and that with the new tech center to make a right turn or left turn out in and out of that,
It's a mess.
I-
It's a mess. So I will send you, Mr. Diaz, a communication that has some of this in that. And like I said, it's easier to just talk to me over the phone, and then you can go and talk to Lena and Public Works.
Right. And
Sure.
obviously, these are important issues, but they're a little complicated to kind of drop into this meeting. These are a whole conversation. Did you have any other questions, James?
I just wanted to add that gate from the BN yard leading out to Cutting, it's bad enough where we don't even let the car haul, the transport trucks out there because it's too difficult to navigate that. I don't know if that helps you or not, but
Yeah, it's a mess.
It's a mess.
Hi, this is Jesse. I cannot figure out how to raise my hand. I can see everything else, but
Well, go for it, Jesse. What do you want to know?
so we're talking a lot about how we're going to handle emergency response in Richmond. And I one time was very impressed. I can never remember what they're called. I was up and out in the Sierras or something, and on the freeway at a rest stop at a hotel I was staying at, they wear uniforms. They're either a California or United States government, like Civil Corps of Engineer Army or something, and they were on their way down to the Bay Area to practice because they said, we believe that if the big one hits, the roads are going to be all chewed up, so we're practicing bringing our tanks in because we think that's the only way you're going to get around is in tanks. So that just makes me wonder tonight how Richmond is coordinating with agencies from the state and the federal government.
That's a great question, Jesse. So from a city standpoint, especially emergency management, so California has this structure which really facilitates that coordination that you asked, and it's called SEMS, Standardized Emergency Management System. So what it is it's a tier approach that goes both ways, where the state supports and liaises with the county, and the county is in turn needs to then coordinate and liaise with us for any assistance needed or any rapid deployment of additional resources. So that's how we go. So in essence, I cannot go to the state and request, special assistance or vice versa without going through the county.
Okay.
The county is really and that's in their terms, in our terms, county is referred to as operational area. That includes local jurisdictions, unincorporated areas, special districts, industry partners. So, all of the moving pieces within that operational area or county are coordinator fall under the umbrella of the county. So we have that especially with Contra Costa County, with the seat in Martinez, we regularly meet on several things. This morning, I was actually in Martinez discussing changes to the existing hazmat notifications that would go out from the refineries per requirement by Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Looking at, what would be the best way? What is considered something that needs to be, reported? Does every flare needs to be notified to the public? So that's the type of conversation we're having. We're doing it with the county. Something happens where we need to activate our EOC. That's direct coordination with the county. And if, a situation overwhelms our capacity, the state comes in through county request. So it's really through that 3-tier approach that the massive population of California can be tended to.
And what facilities does the state have to bring in?
I'm sorry?
What if the state had to come in, like, let's say the city and the county are overwhelmed. Let's say we have a massive earthquake, or we finally see that mushroom cloud over San Francisco we've been waiting for since 1954, wouldn't the state or US government preempt? Wouldn't they sort of preempt everything and come in and like, what does the state have to offer? You know, what does the county have to offer?
Yeah, well, we operate. Yeah, we would operate, or we would allow things to flow in via a declared emergency, which is in essence the key to opening up those resources. So we declare, the county declares, the state also declares to open up the door to the federal resources. And the state, I mean, Cal, yes, the California Office of Emergency Services, they are, you know, pretty well equipped, massive unit. You know, they really are ready to deploy National Guard if we need, you know, assistance in terms of mass feeding, for instance. That was the case during the pandemic response in several counties. They're all Cal Fire, you know, for instance, for massive wildfire, and many other things. So they just quickly deploy specific unit response units.
Okay, thank you very much. That helps a lot. Yeah.
Sure.
Any more hands? So I have two really brief questions before we let you go back to your family. And thank you again for spending your evening with us.
No worries.
So in say there's a Chevron explosion or a major event, earthquake, whatever it be, would you be, I assume there's a command center with the police, the mayor's office, and fire, and would you be in control of that process, or is it a team effort, or what would that look like at City Hall or wherever he would be?
Yeah, no, great question, Philip. It's a combination. So as I mentioned earlier, we have an emergency operations plan, which lays out how we're going to organize. So my role will be involved in it, but not really leading it. Sorry, not leading it. I convert into the EOC the EOC manager. I have to make sure that EOC is readily available. Other departments come in and they have a role already identified in that response structure. The city manager also converts into one of the leading persons in that response. You know, as a city manager, you have to also oversee, you know, where is this response going?
Where does the buck stop here? With the city manager, with the mayor, or just continuously, like you mentioned, as a team?
No, it stops at a city manager. We support in every aspect of it through ICS, Incident Command System. We have a planning section, operations section, logistics section. So the city departments organize, and again, we have specific names of people in every department that will be sitting and occupying seats during an activation.
Thank you.
That's the best way to address a response.
And the last, you know, we talked about how your role, and you mentioned how your role would normally report to the city manager. In this case, you're part of the fire team. Is this advantageous, disadvantageous, or neutral?
I'm sorry, can you
okay,
repeat the
because
question,
you're
Phil?
reporting to the fire chief, you're part of the fire department and not reporting directly to the city manager. Do you consider that disadvantageous, advantageous, or neutral?
I don't know how to how to answer that. I think how the structure is at the moment it works because where I am, which is under the umbrella of fire department, really has a lot of benefits. So I've been under fire department in other jurisdictions, and this model has proven to be very efficient, especially for cities.
Right. So you're happy where you are, and we should be happy with where you are.
Yes.
Okay, that was the question. Anybody else before we let this poor man get back? He had a start yesterday morning with me and end tonight, and that is a nightmare. Let him get back to his family. Any last questions? Richard, we look forward to working closely with you and having you in our hood to have some coffee. And thank you for your generous time yesterday and again tonight.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you all. Port Richmond is a very beautiful neighborhood. I liked it. I enjoyed it, and I'd love to go back and grab coffee and get to meet more of you guys. So have a
Bring
great
your
evening.
kids.
Oh, we will.
Okay. Now we
Bye.
have, thank you so much, Richard. Have a good night. Now we're going to move on to our elections. We have a tough race between Edie Sellers and Edie Sellers, um, who has stepped forward, I think, partially because she wants to serve and partially because it's her turn. And that's often how it kind of works with these positions. But Edie is running to replace Lisa Johnson. Lisa's going to stay on as we're starting sort of a volunteer advisory committee where, as we do with many of our people like June and people like Gary who help out when we need them with information, Lisa's still going to stay adjacent, but she needs to step down. And Lisa will also be overlapping with Edie next month because I'm going to be gone most of the month. So we want to make sure everything runs smoothly in the transition. So I would like to nominate Edie Sellers, but first, I guess, Edie, if you could just introduce yourself to the 3 or 4 people in this meeting who don't know you already.
Hi, I'm Edie. So I have been in and around for Point Richmond pretty much all of my life. My parents bought this house in 1971 and we were in and around it, but I've lived here in this house since 1992. So like, I guess that's like 32 years. Um, I know you just heard me talk about Point Richmond CERT. I was one of the 2 co-founders of Point Richmond CERT, and I was the React CERT Volunteer of the Year in 2018, and I'm also a CERT trainer. I have a background in journalism as a writer and an editor as a newspaper, so I can write articles very quickly and pump stuff out. I'm a tech gadget person. In fact, Philip is frequently calling me, Edie, something doesn't work. And I'm the one that goes down and says, okay, Philip, here's what you need to do.
Calm down.
Calm down. It's fine. So I've run Zoom seminars. Previous position, I assisted a group of physicians, a group of physician assistant managers at a very large healthcare company. And I was the person that would be the seamless person behind the scenes that would be running the Zoom meeting, with PowerPoints and multiple people going on. And these were attended by 500 people at a time. So these were large scale seminars. So I'm very familiar with Zoom and all of the bells and whistles that can go with it. I also administer my company's Zoom. Currently, I'm the administrator for the Zoom telecommunication system. We are 100% Zoom at my company, and I'm the one that essentially I'm the admin. In fact, at work, everybody calls me the Edie button. Just press the Edie button if something is broken. Familiar with Teams, familiar with PowerPoint, most sound and web applications. As you can see, I'm, a sound and web geek. I podcast, I videocast, so I'm familiar with editing software and
Let's hire this woman.
Yeah, I know. We need tech help.
And also, editing a video. So putting it back up, streaming onto Facebook, streaming onto Twitch or onto YouTube. However, if you wanted to do that, I can do that pretty easily. So, and
Nice.
the other big help is that I live a block from Philip. So something needs to be, if I need to be called upon to stand in for the president, I am literally down the block. So he can just come down. I can come down and rescue him at any time.
Thanks. I do also want to mention that Edie is one of our 3 current lifetime members. Gary is one of them, Edie is one, and Don Woodrow. So she made a commitment a long time ago to the PRNC for life. A bunch of us are joining with the new signage project. Before I nominate Edie, is there anyone who wants to hop in and run against her at 8:33?
No, but I have a question.
And then we have a question from Amanda.
Edie, did you say you work at Workday?
No, I do not work at Workday. I work
Oh.
for a lobbying firm called Lighthouse Public Affairs.
Okay. I was just curious.
But
So-
she's a PR person. Well, her firm is a PR and public affairs firm.
Okay, cool. Definitely love your background.
One of the
I'm
things
excited.
I kind of heavily recruited Edie because she was telling me that the best way to be the president of a community group is to find the person you want on your board and ask them. And then 10 minutes later, I asked her because Edie's kind of a little bit of a jack of all trades. So anyway, any other questions for Edie? So I would like to nominate Edie as to take over Lisa Johnson's position as vice president. Will anybody second that nomination?
I'll second it.
Several hands. Okay, if you are a current member of the PRNC, which means that you are either current or you are paid. If current means that if your fee was waived, you're an official member even though you're not paid, or if your membership is current. If you agree that, I don't know how to, Charmaine, are you around? Or did you drop out? Charmaine is the one who knows how to say these fancy words. I think Charmaine dropped out.
I can't talk. I'm coughing.
She's back.
Will you just do that one sentence for me to nominate Edie?
Oh, well, you said it.
Okay. I would like to nominate Edie. All in favor of electing Edie, either raise your hand physically or use the cursor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Sarah says yes.
Okay. It looks like the majority of the people that I recognize as being members, I'm having a little trouble doing this count, but I think I've got 19 of the attendees, and not all the attendees are members. So I'm going to consider Edie our new vice president and welcome her to our little tiny corner of heaven and hell. Thank you, Edie.
Hooray.
All righty, let's move on to our community briefs so we can see who I'm going to forget this time. Start with maskers. Anybody have any news on maskers?
Just a quick announcement on the current play. We're doing Spring Awakening. It ends on May 5th. It's a musical. It's got a delightful orchestra on the stage, live music. Single tickets are $35 for musical, and there's a 10% discount for seniors and students.
Thanks, Jim. Cordell, I do not see here. You here today, Cordell? So I don't have an update on Richmond Neighborhood Coordinating Council. I could not make it to that meeting this month. I see the smiling face of Gary. What's going on with the Benevolent Fund and Richmond Tennis?
A couple news items. One is I look around everybody who's on this on the meeting. This will not apply to a number of you. However, one of the key things that's happening is we now have youth tennis happening back at Nickel Park for ages 7 to 14. Now, I know for a lot of you you may not have any at that age. However, you probably know some people that are, and it's free. You know, it used to be charged. It's a great deal, and it runs every day of the week after school to around 5 o'clock. And at 5 o'clock, the adult tennis starts. But it's a great deal for keeping kids active, and we're having a pretty good sized group there. So it's finally got started back up after COVID. So that's one thing.
Gary, it's not even our kids anymore. It's our grandkids now.
I know. That's what I said. But you know people. That's right. But it's a great opportunity for kids. Locally, we have applied for an ECIA grant for resurfacing a number of tennis courts in Richmond, and one of those is the upper court in by the plunge, because it's gotten cracks in it, and we will find out next month is what funding we're going to get for that. Also, when we do that, though, we are planning to use it for multi-purpose for both tennis and pickleball. We've actually did an experiment with some tape where you can actually play tennis and pickleball on the same court quite easily, just lower the net a couple inches. So we expect to actually make that be both a pickleball and tennis. It's being used that way already. And the lower court that actually has a wall, we're probably not going to do that with that. We've had a great spring season. We had 5 teams. These teams are different ages and different ability groups that actually got into the playoffs during the season. One of those went on, and we actually have a team that's going up to Northern California championship that's going to happen in about another 3 weeks. It's a mixed team, happens to be a mixed team of men and women. So we're excited about that. New seasons are starting, so it's very active. We're getting lots of folks out, and it's keeping us very busy. Other than that, also the plunge, with all the rain we had, we have an abundance of weeds. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work over there over the next couple of weeks of cleaning up around the plunge. But, and we're actually working, that's probably all the significant news that I've got at this time.
Thank you for that update. And that's really super news about the tennis starting up again.
Yeah.
Straight off the sexy and exciting spring swing event on the Red Oak Victory, we have Graham and Jim here too.
Yeah, Phil, thanks very much, and very glad that you enjoyed the spring. Coming up, we start our pancake breakfasts on May the 12th, which happens to be Mother's Day. And we serve up our usual delicious pancake breakfast starting at 9 o'clock to 12:30. $15 for adults, $8 for children, and you can also buy some highly charged mimosas to go along with it and get Mum pickled, so that she will really enjoy the afternoon. We're also following on with our spring movie season. With Bogey at War, and I think we're showing in my opinion, 2 of his best movies. On May the 16th, we're having To Have and Have Not, in which he stars with his future wife, Lauren Bacall. And then on June the 20th, we have our usual highlight of the season, which is Casablanca, which is always a great movie. And we also have a little raffle and quiz going along with it, particularly for Casablanca. So please do join us. And also, we're still open on Sundays for all sorts of tours, 9 until 3 o'clock. So if you've got nothing better to do, please come down and join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. And it was a good time. Some people dressed up sporty style. It was really nice. And Diane is here to talk about Women's West Side.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Several of our members were at Miller Knox Park last weekend for the Earth Day cleanup. And of course, we picked up a lot of trash. And a big thank you to Susie Cody, who's online here, for her leadership. She's so dedicated, and because of her, the park looks a lot cleaner. Thank you, Susie. Our spring fundraiser will be on May the 7th at the First United Methodist Church. We're going to be having bunco and playing games to raise money for our local charities. And then I have a special announcement, but I'll wait till the end of our program. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Peter, what's the update on ping pong?
Well, we're still going strong. We've been having about, I think last Monday we had 6 people plus myself. So if you guys feel, if Monday rolls along and you feel like you need some exercise, stop by the Point San Pablo Yacht Club on Cutting. Push the black button, we'll let you in. 5 o'clock, tell everybody. I think everybody left about 8:30 last time. And you don't have to be a good ping pong player to have fun there.
Great. And thanks, Peter. And Jim Davis from, well, what's going on with Rosie?
Lots of things. It's a very busy end of April and into May. First of all, I used to always say we're open 7 days a week and we're free. Well, we're still free, but we're not open 7 days a week. Because of staff problems, 29th and 30th of April, we will be closed, but we're hoping to go back on a normal schedule in May. We have lots of presentations scheduled and talks, if all on World War II in the home front. I'm doing Filipinos again tomorrow at 2:30. That's the very first presentation I ever gave, and I'm gonna give the same one again. I've changed it slightly, but that will be tomorrow. And then in May, on the 9th and 23rd, I have a two-part talk on women in World War II. First part will be public lives of women, and the second, private lives. And then we have a wonderful speaker, Steve Guilford, who lives in Petaluma, has written a book on Henry J. Kaiser. He's going to be talking about Kaiser on May the 11th. And retired history professor from UC Berkeley, Tom Metcalf, will be talking about immigration into Richmond in the Bay Area on May 26th. And then let's see, finally, every Friday, we have representatives from the Japanese relocation experience, and also we have our Rosie's visit. So Friday is a good day to meet people and hear live presentations. So we have a lot going on rest of April into May.
Thanks, Jim. Busier than ever, huh?
Yes, we are.
And I'm going to just slide in a little mention because you mentioned the Filipino community. For those of you who are unaware, Josephine and the Filipino community, including my husband, have an exhibit about the Filipinos who worked for Standard and Standard originally, and then Chevron Oil. And she's got in the El Sol restaurant, they put together these incredible histories of these families with memories of what it was like for the Filipino community here. So I would advise you to grab some tacos and go down there and take a look at that exhibit. They put a lot of love and work into it. I know that Charmaine is coffee, but Charmaine, is there any update on Keller Beach sanitary sewer system that you're aware of?
Yeah, Phil, can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Graham?
Yes, yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay, great, Graham.
I see you. Yeah, we're sort of, we had Viola down here last week, and we tried to ask him, what is any coordination between potentially upgrading of the Keller Beach sewage system and Viola? And his answers were deceptive, maybe. And we didn't get any straight answers at all. And he said, well, we're waiting on what the outcome of the report, et cetera, which is now what must be 8 months overdue.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of us are concerned about is that they've gone quiet. Nobody's telling us anything to happen. And then all of a sudden we get a Lazarus-like resurrection of this whole program, which is then dumped in our laps and said, well, this is it, guys. And, we're not going to, you, the local community, have 5 minutes to respond before we approve it. And I think we need to be more proactive here in finding out exactly what is going on. And if it has died and gone to bad idea heaven, fine, tell us that. But if it's still alive, we should be getting some sort of updates on a regular basis. And I don't know if Caesar is. I couldn't see him earlier.
He's not here today, but I spoke to him about this Monday.
Yeah, and I think we really need to start pressing the Public Works and the City Council to give us an update.
Okay, so our speaker next month, tentatively, but most likely, will be Caesar doing this. He did it this time last year, kind of giving us an update on the District 2 meetings that he held and what the results were. And I think that we should prioritize getting as solid an answer as he is able to give. When you sit with Caesar at dinner or one-on-one, you start to realize how frustrating it is to even to be a council member. The poor guy's beating his head against the wall, and I don't know what more he can do to get more answers from the city, but I think it's something that should be a priority for him to discuss at that meeting next month. And that gives him a month to, to kind of check back in with the city on that. So, Graham, I'd recommend you shoot him a little email. I understand you're going to be our speaker next month. Can we have whatever ABC? And then I'll follow through on that with him as well.
Okay. Now, do we know where the blockage is? Is it at the council? Is it the works department or what? No idea.
Public Works, presumably.
Yeah. And maybe somebody should remind them that they work for the city.
The more I get involved, the more I realize that things are very messed up. But we do have the highest we have more public works I don't know what, I can't remember the official term, certified engineers or licensed engineers. We do have more engineers in public works now than we've had for years. Daniel Cheveria.
Ever
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Ever.
So the staff is in, they're filling those positions for breathtaking salaries. And I don't know how long it's going to be before things whip into shape. It's not I dream of GD, you hire the people. Quite honestly, nobody knows what's going on. A year after Public Works, they still can't tell us that they know where the evacuation routes are. A year after we drove this. So, Lisa, and then we have to move on.
Public Works, if you want to go back to the last city council meeting, I think it was the April 16th council meeting, Graham. Public Works presented the first main agenda item, and they have a link in there to the 84 projects that they refer to that is on their plates, with timelines over the next 5 years on where they will be addressed and how far they will be addressed within the next 5 years. I don't recall where this was on that particular 84 project list, but you can go on there. They also created a new dashboard on the city's website where you supposedly can go and look up your projects based on your district, because I asked for that. I asked them to include the district so you could always filter on projects for District 2. And you can look in there and see if your project's listed. And if it's not, then I would contact Caesar about that and make sure it gets on the list.
I see. Is it likely to be number 85?
There's a lot missing. Let's just say it's a magical list.
Okay.
What I think, we're making, this is a huge concern for us and we make a lot of jokes about it, but I think that what Lisa is communicating is the city is equally messed up on most of their major projects. So we may not be falling through the cracks because the whole city may be a sieve. So, but it's important that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, Let's move on to our community briefs and hear from Charmaine. Charmaine's dropped off, we believe, because she's not feeling well. So unless anyone has any CERT updates, we'll move on. Anybody from PRBA? Margie, you're in it. Do you know anything going on with them right now? Okay. I have spoken quite a bit to PRBA is undergoing some changes, and some members of the PRBA are reaching out to the PRNC, and some key members of the community that would be really useful to have more active in our organization. So in long ago past, we were side-by-side organizations. Many of the things we did together. And maybe as that PRBA changes a little bit, we might see that synergy start to come back a little bit. I think both organizations can utilize the help of having more board members and more community members. But I don't know of any activities they're having. Bonnie Jo, are you here?
I am here indeed. Yes.
Thanks. I'm on splits. Oh, there you are. I'm on split screen today, so please excuse me. Hi, Bonnie.
Hello. I'm really happy to announce that thanks to the efforts of Mike Cooper and Jim Davis, we have 2 more historical plaques mounted. One on the Abbott Hospital, the old Abbott Hospital, which is at the intersection of Santa Fe and West Richmond, and one on the Maskers Playhouse building. We're there. So if you're walking around, check them out. They're very handsome. We've got a couple more in the works, so there will be more. I wanted to invite everybody to our annual meeting, which is on May the 19th at 2 o'clock in the Friendship Hall at the Methodist Church. Non-members are as welcome as members to come. And we'll have an excellent speaker this year. Jim Davis is going to give us a talk on the Italian Americans in World War II with a special reference to Richmond and Point Richmond. And if any of you have attended Jim's talks at Rosie, you know he's a very entertaining and educational speaker. So we invite everybody. Refreshments will be served, of course. We always like refreshments. And that's it. That's what I have.
Okie dokie. Arts Point Richmond, Margie.
There are 5 venues that the Arts of Point Richmond take care of. One of them is Laura's Fine Dining, which is turning over its artists this month. At the post office is the African diaspora, some statues, very, very nice. El Sol, we talked about that with the Filipino families, which is just a great exhibit. And then there's Take It Outdoors and the TIO Kids as well. Those are the banners that are all over town. And in June, we're getting a whole new, like 25 new banners. So that's gonna be great. And then unfortunately, the kids for Take It Outdoors in the kids system, I think the school has lost their funding. So we're not sure if they can do that next year. So we're going to try to figure out how to backfill some money for that. And then at the Point Richmond Gallery, Joel Beck is our artist, and he's a local wonderful cartoonist and character. And what the History Club talks about, when Karen Buchanan walks around town, she says that his ghost is still in the Up and Under, because that's when the electricity goes off and on. That's Joel. So it closes May 12th.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Margie. Pram, anybody? I don't see Layla. So I'm going to take Pram's space to promote something that looks really exciting to me. Pram adjacent at the PTA. The PTA at Washington Elementary is sponsoring their international fair this Friday. I think it's 5. It starts at 5:30. I think it's 8. We did send a flyer out. Now I'm trying to send flyers out with our newsletters. They really need some help. You know, it's a struggle to get that organized. And there's a great silent auction with all kinds of things. It's online. And that's on Nextdoor and Facebook. You'll see those postings, but they'll also have the silent auction live. That is in some community room or the cafeteria. We'll find it at Washington Elementary this Friday from 5:30. There's refreshments and music, and I think it might be nice to walk or drive over there and support the PTA. Lisa, what's going on with the homeowners? Anything?
Just problems. Same old problems. It's just the same old problems that haven't been addressed. They also got tagged, that horrible Veolia pump that they installed and didn't finish, and that's gone into a black hole, and that got tagged 3 times.
Right. I got an email from Marcia Valier that the city is on it, and she was unaware. Marcia's only here half the time. She lives in
Yeah.
another state. She was unaware that this had happened community-wide.
Yeah, so that got tagged, and then now there's some new rail spur getting installed along Canal, and nobody knows where the approval for this rail spur came from and who's doing it. And there's lots of magical stuff happening in the city.
So chaos prevails. Peter, did you have a question?
Yes. At the previous Monday's ping pong, I wrote her name down, but I don't have it in my computer in front of me. A member of the Brickyard Cove HOA. I don't think she actually came to play ping pong. I think she actually came to talk to me because I was on the neighborhood council, and she wanted to know if we could help in any way with the kiln and the all the bricks you guys have and the fun and the cost of storing that and the cost of repairing all that and so on and so forth. And she seemed pretty passionate about this, and I listened and tried to be as compassionate as I could. And I ultimately said, I think if you want to see something, the best thing to do is to come up with a proposal of your own. And my suggestion was, I know people who do modeling miniatures for like movies and commercials. Perhaps they could build a miniature kiln and smokestack, and then just store and create a little interpretive center with some of the original bricks, maybe a bunch of foam bricks for kids to build their own little kiln or something. But anyway, the idea was that if she wanted to, she could attend our meeting. She said she'd been to our general meetings before and raised this concern with the general membership. I don't see her here. I think I recognize her name.
Peter, do you know if she's reached out to Brickyard Landing?
It sounded like, she didn't know your name. She didn't know Charmaine's name. She didn't know Jim Davis's name. So I don't know how many people she knows or how many people she's contacted, but she was very upset about the fact that this was an onerous burden on the tenants over there. So,
yeah.
Kate, thanks, Peter. That's a complicated issue, and this is for those of us who run volunteer organizations. So often people come up to us with something that has been discussed 1,000 times for 100 years with 5,000 meetings, and they all of a sudden, and you go like, where have you been the last 5 years that we've been having meetings on this? Kate, I'm sorry, I forget somebody every week, and that person gets extra good luck. This week, I forgot you, which means you're going to have good luck for the entire week. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you finished with the homeowners association issue?
Yes.
James had his hand up as well, so I didn't know if.
Yeah, James. Okay, James.
It just goes back. I got to ask you again, Lisa. This new rail track spur on Canal, is it going to one of the refineries there?
I will, Jonathan Livingston took pictures of it. He notified the city. Somebody's supposed to get back to him.
Shoot me an email or picture and I'll look at it, because there's been an uptick in tanker rail cars the past few months. That's why I'm thinking it's probably going to a refinery.
Yeah, there's one that's been approved through the planning commission, but that is independent of what he's observing. So the city's supposed to be looking into it. I can forward you a communication on it.
Thanks.
Okay. And then back to the lucky winner of the Philip Can't Read competition, Jay Spalding.
Thank you. I love the
that,
entryway. I forgot you, but now we love to hear more from you. Thank you. So Magic Lantern showed in April. The awesome Aurora Sunrise film about the Armenian genocide. It was well attended, hard to watch, but a beautiful film. For May, second Saturday in May at the Methodist Church, we're showing Here We Are, a delightful father-son journey in Israel before the pandemic and before all the current uprising, and about how a father and son are negotiating their relationship. So delightful film. We were planning on ending and having our summer break as usual. And after the month of May, but there's been more requests for old films that they just want to see. They want to see them again. So we're entertaining those to continue past May. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Kate. And I guess the good news is this time it wasn't Bonnie Joe, who I traditionally forget. So there we go.
Thanks, Philip. You're getting better. You're getting better.
I don't know. Maybe I need to space this out. It's just the writing is too small for me. Okay, now let's go on to see if anybody has anything to say in public forum. Peter?
Yes, I'd like to introduce to those of you who don't know him, this is Tony Karachi here. He's just joining the general membership. That's the first thing. So Tony is the owner of the Baltic Kiss and the Black Star Pirate Barbecue.
Hi guys. I'm very looking forward to being on you guys' committee and joining as soon as possible.
Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Philip.
All right. And on top of that, or besides that, I am, I think some of you might have noticed there was a car show on Railroad Avenue the first Sunday of this month, and that will be a repeating Sunday event going from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. It's called Carbecue because we're doing it in Tony's parking lot and associated parking lots, but it's basically cars and coffee for any of you people that are familiar with that. These folks do very informal car shows all over the country, and there's no judging. You just drive whatever you like, whatever you're proud of, and show it off. Nobody's awarding awards, and any kind of car goes. Anyway, it was very well attended. We had, I don't know, hundreds of people, dozens and dozens of cars and hundreds of people. And the Cars and Coffee folks, they were thrilled at how well it worked out. They have several other events around the Bay Area. They said this one worked out really well. So we're going to be doing that again the next first Sunday in May, and then on and on. Yeah.
So Peter, who are you inviting to drive your cars there?
I'm always looking for volunteers. So
there she is.
I have one automatic, and the others are 4 speeds and 5 speeds. So
they call me Suber.
Yes. So yeah.
I've got one of those.
Yeah, if somebody wants to drive a 63 Avanti supercharged, my friend Tony Ledron drove it for me, and he said that he had a hard time driving it because every time he tried to take off, he'd just spin the wheels. So I told him just use second gear. It was perfectly happy. And the Manx is I drove the Manx, but anybody could drive that if they want. It's kind of scary. It's even more ferocious. Anyway, it was great.